This Menards Klearvue cabinets, they come in increments. This is for like a mix master of pretty much 3, you know, like 9, 12, 15, 18, 24. Wait, where's 21? I need a 21-inch cabinet, and this is so I went with a 24. I go, I'll just cut it down. It's no big deal. I mean, famous last words. Here's what to know. If you gotta cut the cabinet down, you're going to have to think it out, you know, use your noodle. It's 24. I want the overall width to be at 21, so I gotta go to 20 1/4. Everybody knows that. So, you know, so I laid it out. I'm gonna go to right here. But see this little groove in here, this little recess, this little dado. You know, they machine this out so the back goes beyond. Well, that's the trick, right? Because that dado goes in about 5/16 of an inch. I would assume that this is maybe a 1/4 inch. So this goes a 1/4 inch further. Well, when you cut this, you know, you're like, all right, so I just need to cut this at 20 1/4 all the way around. Well, you got to think of it in terms of what's the longest piece going to be? And that's the back, because the back goes into that cut slightly. I'm gonna say 20 1/4. You need to start out at like 20 1/2-ish. Be a little smaller. You don't want your back to be fighting this, and you're like, oh shoot, now I gotta take it all apart. You know, err to the smaller size. You know, leave yourself maybe 1/8 of an inch. It's okay that that's a little bit short inside that pocket, but it's not okay for it to be too long, and it's certainly not okay that you see the edge of that. I have my layout here. 20 1/4 is right there, and I went to, you know, 20 9/16. 21 is my objective. All right, so ultimately, I will be cutting this right here. Now, I know I've got to have some of my blade above there. So I'm gonna have like a little mouse hole right here. So it's important that I don't have my blade extended all the way up so that I end up with a hole in the back of the cabinet, which it's not the end of the world. Who in the heck is gonna look back there and find that and be like, hey, what happened? It's just good common sense. So I already cut this, and how I did it, let's get you guys as tall as I am, all the way up to 5'7", roughly. Get this going like this, and I'm gonna push this against the fence. It's nice and tight against the fence. You can feel that. You can feel it's nice and tight against the fence. Look over there and make sure it's parallel. Just keep it up nice and close to your fence and push it through and have that blade come through. It's of no consequence that this blade, while you're cutting the back, it's of no consequence that your blade, if your surface is at 1 inch, bring it up to like 1 1/4 inch, the top of your blade, the highest point, and that's fine. But you wouldn't want to just like extend. I've seen people do this all the time. Like, well, I don't know what height to have my blade at, so I'll just always have it at the highest point. Well, there's a lot of energy in that blade that can make your day go crappy. See how this back right here is let into this space? Let's see if I can shine some light. If you look really closely inside there, you can see that space off to the far left in that pocket. And it's about a 1/16 of an inch. So I'm glad that, you know, I didn't leave an 1/8. It looks like they glued that. I see like a little bit of wood glue or some hot glue in there. You can look at this pocket here and see the same thing. They got about a 1/16 of an inch space. They didn't run it. They purposely didn't run it all the way tight. They wanted to kind of float in there a little bit, give themselves a little wiggle room for the assembly. All right, so the next step, I already cut the back. The next step is I'm gonna flip this up. I'm gonna cut that bottom right up there, where that's gonna end up. That cut is gonna end up to the left of that a little bit, to the left of that cut. But look close, here's the trick. I'm gonna come slightly above the top of the blade would be slightly above the surface of this by about 1/4 of an inch, maybe 1/2 an inch. But I want the blade to go through this edge banding, because on the other side, when I exit my cut, I don't care if it blows out. If I were to do that in reverse and blow out this edge banding, it's gonna look like crap. Nobody likes that. All right, so I just want to double check, make sure I'm at 20 1/4. And I am, that's good. So I just want to make sure that I'm tied up against my fence, my blade's where I want it to be, and I'm just gonna push it real good. I was careful not to, as I'm pushing it, pinch this together. I'll show you what I mean. One thing that's a little bit precarious is after you cut that, see how that kind of floats back and forth? All right, Well, there's not a whole lot left holding this cabinet, right? It's kind of like, there ain't much left there. It's just here and back there. So you don't want to pinch that blade together. Be a little bit cautious of that and just understand that that's happening. Just the fact that you understand that that is a factor is probably enough. Doing an action like this, where you're like holding this like that and pressing it together, and I guess that'd be easy to do if you're a little nervous about that cut. I hope that made sense. So now, what I'm gonna do is, the only cut that really I have left to do is right here and right here. Now I've already marked this out to where I want my straight edge clamp. And I'm just gonna do this with a circular saw. Probably end up with a little cutout here maybe. I can flip it upside down though, right? I can put this face down. Let me get you guys out of the scene of crime here so I can commit it, right? I'm gonna hold this together real careful. You don't want stuff to break apart while you're flipping stuff around. Just kind of support the parts that are loose. All right, everything is nice and supported. As I'm cutting this, I don't want this to slide. And I don't want to cut my table saw again, which I've done before. But I've had this straight edge clamp for, God, at least 20 years. And I tell you what, it is worth its weight in gold. Typically, the offset from the edge of your circular saw to the blade is 1.5 inches. Mine on my Makita is 1.5 inches. Slightly heavy. I already know that. You want to make sure you have a good, wouldn't you know it, I just lent out a couple of tools with the larger batteries that fit this. My buddy Jerry, he just ran off with my Sawzall and a couple of batteries and a charger. So I gotta go out to my van and get them. All right, you guys wait here. All right, so here's what we got, right? So I have got my straight edge. The edge of my saw is gonna run right up against that. And my intention is to cut this. Have this cut right here. This cut is the cabinet back, so that's like over here a little bit, right? And that's gonna go into that pocket. Hopefully this back pulls out of this pocket easily enough. When I cut this is gonna fall. It's gonna just timber, and it's gonna ruin itself right on the floor. So I gotta make sure that doesn't happen. I'd say one of the bigger things to worry about as I get a clamp, well, one of the best things you can do in this scenario is just think it out long before you get to this moment. You know, think it out. I do. Maybe you all 60 of you are smart enough. You just arrive at the scene of the crime and start stealing, and you're successful. Not me. I need to plan out this crime well in advance. That way I don't walk away in handcuffs and regrets. So anyway, back to the action. A lot of times I'll take my my fence and my table saw if I'm trying to prevent this from going that way. And I'll use it as a backstop so I can't go any further. I actually cut my table saw again. And then this is a pretty easy cut. I got it clamped here so this won't fall away. And there's nothing pinching this, so that's good. I just need to run the saw. Hopefully it's at the right depth, which it could use a little more depth. And I'm gonna cut it real good. Not right in front of you, that would be rude. So I can do like a little test. Oh my gosh. It's okay to do a little test, and that's right alongside that line. So we're good. Good job, everybody. Even the apprentices. You guys are doing awesome. All right, let's go. Those two pieces are separate. Let's see what we did here. So, see how the back here is slightly longer than everything else? Let's see. This light's too bright because it's so badass. Nothing really helps here. So this is exceeded by the back slightly so it can go into this pocket. Now I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna separate it and I'm gonna try to dig everything off of this. So I need to get rid of this, and pull the back out of it. And of course get rid of the bottom. Let's see how this works. Tear cabinets apart all day, every day. But I've done it enough times to kind of, I've screwed it up enough times to want to not screw up anymore. And I know what it looks like. And I just call it cabinetry anatomy. So this is what we got to work on. Make sure you don't hit the on switch. And this, the only thing we have to work on this is just attaching this to this when I'm done screwing around with it. Pretty easy. So So this is a little easier to understand. So this back exceeds this point by the amount that it's gonna go into the pocket, into the dado, into that, okay? So let's tear into this thing and see how much trouble it can give us. I know that, that they like to use dowels and glue, at least. That's what we know so far. And it's pretty well put together, you know? It's not gonna just fall out. That's sad. I don't want to just bang the shit out of it because it's gonna tear up my piece. But I'm gonna give it a couple little ratty tats just to kind of knock on its door and let it know who's boss. I have a super duper screwdriver and a super duper chisel, and I didn't tell you guys this before, but I've been looking for the Leatherman for a good 2-3 hours. It was over by the super duper screwdriver. Okay, so if you don't have a mallet like this, get one. I went a long time without this mallet, and to be honest with you, I couldn't tell you the first thing about it that I like. I just know I like it. And it seemed like everyone that I saw on the job site that had one was just cooler than me. Like, that can't happen. All right, so I'm just doing a little pry. Just like, I call this part like exploratory surgery. Like, what trouble are we in this case? So, oh yeah, this is what I'm trying to avoid right here. See how it's cracking right here? Watch. Ooh, I don't like that. I don't want to rip this apart, you know? And I could, because it'll all be hidden, nobody really cares, blah, blah, blah. But I don't really like that. I don't like it. So I'm gonna give it a ratty-tat-tat here. And I know that there's a dowel and it's glued in there. So I think what we gotta do is take some hot jigsaw action maybe, and cut that flush. Not sure about that. Maybe the zippy saw. Oh yeah, let's do the zippy saw. In walks one wee little zippy saw. Right here, isn't it? I just added sound effects for no reason. Okay, let's see what happens. Let's see what we get. I'm gonna leave that screwdriver right there. See what happens. Oh, it peeled it apart anyway. Dang it. Ooh, she's got a wee pucker. I don't like that. I want to prevent that. Ah, might be too late. All right, there it is. Remember when I said we were gonna commit a crime here? Ugh, don't want too much of that. Luckily this is at the back top, so I know what to expect here. I was able to cut through that dowel pretty easily, and that's my objective. From here on out, I don't want to see that anymore. So I got over here, you know, the trick here is I'm just gonna try to follow this line as tight as possible and get those dowels out. Let's see how close we can get on this one. Much better. All right. In case you guys are wondering, see these double cherries here? These are from Germany, and there's I can never. It's like seat 1858, and then there's some. I can never pronounce the name of this. Fabric, Marky? Who even knows? Anyway, these are my favorite chisels. I think they're about 65 bucks a piece, I think. Maybe you can get them for a whole set. Maybe you can get away with, maybe you can get a whole set for about 250, 300 bucks, something like that. I think I bought this set for like 300 bucks, I forget. There is quite a bit of glue here, it seems like. So one thing about this cabinetry that I don't like, it's like the skin of this melamine, it's pretty fragile, and it's like a really thin wallpaper. So once you, like if I were to pull this, it would it'd be inclined to kind of like tear a huge piece, which I'm really trying to avoid. Need some work here, need some room. So my goal here is to make sure that I don't have a weird gap or space between the partition and the top rail. I guess I just don't want it to be shitty looking. When I started this journey, I thought, which side are the easiest to view? And I determined that the hinge side, I don't want to open the door up slightly and look immediately in there and see gappy and choppy, whatever. I want the damage, if there is any, and there will be, I want the damage to be on the hinge side, because you'd have to kind of like look around, peek around the hinges and the edge of the door to see it. So I just don't want that to be too much. I knew I'd have some damage. You know, the other option here is just make a 21-inch cabinet from start. But, you know, I'm really trying to watch the budget on this. I think this is an easier method than making something from scratch, going and getting the edge banding, making this part of the cut list, and then finding this pattern of melamine. Also, these holes are bored like all of the rest of the parts, and this particular cabinet is going to carry a Mixmaster, and the Mixmaster that comes with a Klearvue kitchen package is set up for this boring pattern. It's very boring, much like this video, am I right? All right, close enough. This is, I knew that this was possible. I'm not gonna get too upset about it. I just gotta put it back together with good fasteners and craftsmanship and brains and brawn. Okay, so we're done crying about that. Let's move on, throw those pieces off to the side, and let's work on this bottom. This bottom is gonna be the most challenging because it's gonna have the most dowels. So I've got to, this is the main event and what I'm looking forward to the least on this. I've just got to follow that line all the way through, gingerly back and forth. We got through these dowels pretty good. It's weird. There's like, you can tell that there's a glue here. It's so weird. This is embossed, it's raised. All of this. Actually, a lot of it is flush. There's some parts that are embossed. I'm being really cautious of this melamine, you know, skin that's on here. And most of it's gonna be hidden. So good to have a good quality chisel. This one's a little dull. It's been a while since I've taken the time to sharpen out my chisels. I don't have a sharpening station. A good sharpening station to me is probably, you know, the Tormex. Is it Tormex? It's probably cost me, I don't know, $800-900, $1,000, whatever. I think a purchase like that's tough for me to make in this business. It takes me a day to sharpen all my chisels. About an hour per chisel. I got 6 chisels. By the time I take a little break, and you're just kissing the day goodbye. That's $1,000 right there. In terms of labor, what I contribute towards my business, whatever. Plus or minus $1,000 a day, which is, you're lucky to make $1,000 a day in this business as a, you know, one-man shop. For what I do anyway. Maybe I'm a terrible negotiator. I should make a whole bunch more than $1,000 a day. I think of my business in terms of $1,000 a day. You know, if I'm making $500 in a day, it's not bad. If I'm making $1,000 in a day, that covers about a lot of days where schedule oversights or stuff I got to do. You know, today I had to run around looking for a toner cartridge for my printer. Didn't get paid to do that. So if you consider $1,000 a day, that's good. That's big money. If I can make that all day, every single day, oh my God. So my goal is to think in terms of a minimum of $1,000 a day. Most days I'm not making that kind of money. But if I bought a chisel sharpening station like the Tormex, it'd be $1,000, and each time I go to sharpen these, it'd be like 5 minutes, and I would always have sharp chisels. It's just parting with that operating capital, knowing that if times are slow and you're all caught up with everything, you can sharpen your chisels. It doesn't cost you a whole lot more than just elbow grease. Unfortunately, in this business, you gotta kind of think like that. $1,000 chisel sharpening station is a luxury. Let's say you get a $1,000 tip from somebody, or $2,000 tip, or something like that, or you're able to just get ahead a little bit. Maybe that's when you buy something like that. Or you just hang on to that money for those days where you just can't work. You know, your kids are sick, you're sick. Your wife is sick. You got obligations, family, business related. You know, like today. I mean, I had to go get edge banding and an ink cartridge. I didn't get home till 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Weird. Didn't get paid for any of that. It just cost me time and money. Guys talk about making, $40 or $50 an hour. That's good money if it was all yours, but it's not. It's the system. And it's not enough. It's not nearly enough. People, how much do you charge an hour? If I were to tell you it's $125, $150 an hour, you'd say, keep walking. Find somebody else. It's got a pickup truck and a circular saw and a tape measure and can identify himself in the mirror. And, well, good luck with that. And the younger version of me, the 20 years ago, that version, I worked for peanuts. Time and time again. And I struggled. I had to put in a lot of long hours. Weekends, I still work weekends and nights. What the hell am I doing? But I'm accumulating assets and a stellar credit score. Things are just about paid off to zero zilch. I'm ahead of the game, I think. I wouldn't say I'm ready to retire. I don't think I ever will. I don't know what I would do if I wasn't creating sawdust and mistakes. I'm going to call this close enough and this garbage. Now, the main test. Can I get this thing out? It's only glued. Sometimes glue is really good. I don't want to bust anything apart. Ooh boy, look at that! It came out, no problem, yay! But I gotta go in. Looks like there's a little bit of schmutz in here. Scrape a little bit of that out. Wipe out the boogers. All right. Spend that much for a chisel, and the box that they come in isn't worth anything. Get familiar with making leather sheaths. It's kind of fun to do on a Sunday morning, watching a cartoon. It keeps your chisels from rusting in your van. I don't know about you guys, but for whatever reason, stuff will rust inside my van in the back, It's so weird. All right. So where is the problems? We're gonna have some. That's touching, and that is touching. That's good. So since everything here is just cabinet to cabinet, or there's a side panel covering this, I can just run fasteners in here. Boom, boom, boom. All right. So I'm going to do the bottom first, and I'm going to countersink these. I'm going to run a couple nails. Make sure it's, when they run their cabinetry, when they assemble it, I notice they always have a little lip, a little wee lip here on everything. So I'm going to make sure that I replicate that because their math is pretty spot on. They want the weight of this cabinet, this is the bottom, they want it resting here, not here. So they leave themselves a little bit proud. These don't line up perfectly. They do that on purpose and for good reason. So what do we got? Let's take a close look at our work. Notice this is the factory assembly. This is past, you know, the bottom part of this is past the bottom part of this floor. They do that on purpose, again. So I make sure that I mimic that right here, okay? So that's what our cut is. Let's do like a little close-up review. Not too much damage, not too catastrophic. There's our wee little hole where we overcut it a little bit. That's fine. The back is totally good. There's our wee little hole from overcutting it. There's a mosquito. He wants in on the action. Okay. There's a little blister right here. Let's see if you can see it. It's hard to see. Little blistery here. That's no problem. And we're going to put this apparatus together. Take a little break from the debris field. So this is a Menards. This is for like a Mixmaster. It's an Appliance Caddy. And I gotta tell you, I've already installed this on one side already. I am blown away at how they got this to work so easily. I mean, it's pretty damn cool. This is meant for an 18-inch cabinet. Obviously, I have a 21-inch cabinet. And they tell you exactly where to install this. The 5th hole from the top. They tell you to start there, and that lines everything else up. And then you have 3 in the back that are already lined up with their boring holes. You guys want to see that? You guys don't believe me, do you? You guys never trusted me. Okay. Let's see what this looks like. 1. That's 2. And 3. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. When I opened this up, I was like, oh my God, this is going to be a day's worth of screwing around, trying to figure out what this thing does. I'm going to have to do research, do a lot of reading of instructions, find out what these goofy engineers, have in store for me while they laugh. I tell you what, man, it does not get any easier than this. I was blown away at how complicated this is and how easily they pulled this off. It lines up with their multiple boring machine holes. They give you the exact number of screws. You don't want to lose those. Boom. I'll show you how complicated this thing looks. I mean, dude, is that space age or what? Oh my God. It tells you don't put your fingers here, right? And the thing is spring loaded, so you got to pay attention. It is quite intimidating when you're looking at it for the first time. But the ease of use here, I got to make sure I don't tip it over on myself. Pull this lever out, so easy. And that's where it's going to store. If you want to see it again, I'm your guy. So easy. You want to see it in reverse? All right. The only thing you got to watch out for here is if you're like me, a complete nincompoop, you have already drilled all your doors. I like to drill my doors for the European hinge, whatever, the Blue Motion, whatever. I drill them from the top down to 4 inches to the center, the bottom up to 4 inches from the center. But luckily, in this very rare case, I thought I'm just going to drill the bottom, and I put that door off to the side and I labeled it. How smart. But I'm not done there, because in reality, I don't know where that center is going to be. I mean, I do now. I've already done this. It just has to clear this, okay? Just got to clear that. Kaboom, cabana, right? So this is going to clear my door and that hardware. And it's going to clear my bottom hinge as well. So again, this, actually, I did it a little bit backwards because I'm left-handed. I do everything backwards. No, this door is going to hinge from this side. This mechanism was meant and it says right in the instructions, this is meant for an 18-inch wide cabinet. Well, don't put limitations on me, bro. Because I can make, they give you a cutting board, by the way, right? That's how that's meant to go. This is missing this by 3 inches. 18 from 21 is 3 inches. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make this onto a 21-inch piece of walnut paneling. So you can still use the handle. And you'll still have a cutting board on top of that. Okay, so here's where we're at. You know, I cut this cabinet down, taking it from the 24-inch cabinet down to a 21-inch cabinet. And then, you know, this is gonna hold the Mixmaster, the KitchenAid, whatever. It's an appliance pull-out deal, you know, and I had the electrician, you know, this is my target zone for an outlet. So, you know, it's gonna be, so we can power it up. But since this hardware is meant for an 18-inch cabinet, but honestly, until I figure out otherwise, you know, this could be a 4-foot cabinet. Now, a 4-foot cabinet's not gonna, this isn't gonna connect to that. You know, you just mount the left side to the left side, the right side to the right side, and this is your, you know, this makes a monolithic. Obviously, this needs to be wider. A 21-inch cabinet is 3 inches bigger than an 18-inch cabinet. Obviously, this is math. I've got to come up with a connection point. I still want to use this. I mean, you know, it's a finger joint thing. I've just got to come up with a span that's 3 inches wider so that it connects the left to the right. So since everything in this kitchen is walnut, I'm just gonna put this on here. The idea though is you want a handle. So I'm still gonna use this handle. I'm still gonna use this board. Set that on there, and I scoop this out so you can still use the handle. Obviously this isn't connected yet, so I gotta be a little bit careful. So you can use the handle, and I scoop that out, and what I did is real quick and easy. I just made a jig, and I made this jig like about, I didn't spend a ton of time on this, but this is about a 1/4 inch bigger than the grippy spot because I didn't want my customers' nails to be scratching, you know, the bottom surface and that sort of thing. And I'll just edge band it, and I'm gonna edge band this entire thing. And when I made this little scoop out, you know, since I made it geometrically correct, you know, and I scoop this out with and I just use this wee bit in my router. It's got a top bearing, and it's got a 5/8 of an inch cutter. So I just, you know, flush cut it, and then dropped the cutter down, flush cut it, got rid of the jig, used the actual material, and because it already had a shelf there, a little shoulder there for the guide bearing to go against, and then just finish it up. So I'm gonna actually edge band the inside of that. That's not a very easy trick, but it's entirely possible. All you have to do is just make sure that you have a way to get that edge banding nice and tight and heated up in there. And so it takes a little finesse, but we can do that all day long. So that's how I'm taking this appliance cabinet from an 18 to a 21 out of a 24-inch cabinet. Pretty simple.
Simple enough for sure. But the closer we get to the finish line, the more complicated things get. But we're going to get through it and show you how we do it. So stay safe, stay busy, and stay tuned as we pull off possibly the largest batch of finish we've ever applied in this small space. We use tricks you've never seen used before.